Move approval of the agenda. Second.
Second. Okay. Do we have any public comment? See any? Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimous.
Mhm.
Now's the time for public comments. Anyone wishing to address the committee on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. No public comment? Don't see
No
any.
public comment.
All right. Okay, we'll move on to item 6, business items. 6A, consider approval of recycled water minutes.
Move approval. Second.
Okay, got a motion, a second. Any public discussion? Questions? No public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the motion carries unanimous. Item B, consider recommending approval of the Central Coast Long-Term Environmental Assessment Network, CCLEAN. Who's doing this? There we go.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Olivia Woolery, Laboratory Supervisor at Monterey One Water. Monterey One Water is required to participate in long-term ambient monitoring to comply with our National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES permit. The Central Coast Long-Term Environmental Assessment Network, or CCLEAN, is designed to fulfill receiving water monitoring requirements, as well as support regulatory objectives of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary and the Central Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board. Monterey One Water has been a participant in the CCLEAN program since its inception in 2001. CCLEAN is funded by the point source discharges to Monterey Bay from the City of Santa Cruz, City of Watsonville, Scotts Valley, Monterey One Water, Vistra Corporation, and lead agency Carmel Area Wastewater District. All entities are represented on a steering committee which provides technical and managerial oversight. Cost allocation for CCLEAN is a flat fee and an added additional cost based on the 5-year average discharge proportionate to other dischargers. Monterey One Water's annual contribution for fiscal year 26-27 is $186,599, which is included in the fiscal year 26-27 budget for Department 25. Staff requests that the Recycled Water Committee recommend that the board approve the CCLEAN budget for fiscal year 26-27 in the not to exceed amount of $186,599. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Olivia. Do we have any questions for from the board?
Move approval.
Okay,
Second.
got a motion and a second. Do we have any public question or comments? None?
No public
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to item C, consider recommending approval of amendment to the Energy Systems Agreement with Energia Technologies.
Thank you.
Jen, yeah.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Stefani, members of the committee. I'm Jennifer Gonzalez, CIP Manager. In May of 2022, Monterey One Water submitted a grant application to Cal Recycle for the Co-Digestion Grant Program. The application proposed the installation of food waste receiving infrastructure and digester upgrades to facilitate co-digestion of food waste. In September of 2023, M1W received an award notification in the amount of $4.2 million from Cal Recycle. That covered approximately 51% of the cost of the project. Over the past 4 years, staff has come to the board for amendments to the original contract for changing the location of the installation of the food waste receiving station, bringing the total contract amount to just under $9 million, $8,983,508.79. During the course of construction, several additional minor changes were requested and several credits were negotiated with the contractors. Change orders covered work to landscape the area around the food waste facility to match other areas of the plant, demolition of concrete pads adjacent to the 3 digesters where the old pump mixers were removed and the new mixers were installed on top, and additional electrical work necessary for the proper installation of the new facilities. In all, there were 14 additive change orders and 5 credit change orders. And we negotiated over the last almost a year. At this time, an additional $166,766.07 is needed to close out the contract. All work is complete and no additional changes to that contract are necessary. Staff requests that the Recycled Water Committee recommend that the board consider approval of an amendment to the Energy Services Agreement with Energia Technologies LLC for additional construction activities in the amount of $162,766.07 and approve a budget adjustment to cover the additional cost. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jen. Got a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, so just want to make sure I'm clear. The reason why we haven't seen this earlier is because you were engaged in these negotiations with the contractors over debits and credits to change orders that arose due to things found on site, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
Okay.
We've been working to bring the cost down as much as we could.
Great. Well, thank you for hopefully being tough negotiators. I hope you wrestled them to the ground. I'll move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
In the second, we have any public discussion or questions?
No
See any?
problem.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimous. Move on to item E. No, item D.
C.
Consider recommending approval of a contract amendment for CP 330 Monterey Pump Station.
Good afternoon, members of the Recycle Water Committee. I'm Tom Correttis, Associate Engineer. In May 2023, bid documents were completed for construction of CP 330 to CP 331, the Monterey Pump Station and Seaside Pump Station Upgrades Project. The project was advertised, put on the street and advertised for bid on June 14th of 2023, and the bid opening was on August 3rd of that same year. In August 2023, the board approved the construction contract with Mountain Cascade Incorporated for $33,812,973. In conjunction, the board also awarded an engineering services during construction, or ESDC, contract to Carollo Engineers in the amount of $1,188,189. ESDC includes submittal review, cost analysis on change order requests, responding to RFIs, developing and issuing design clarifications and design modifications, and participation in construction progress meetings and other items as needed. Notice to proceed for construction of this project was on September 20th, 2023. And while the construction has progressed relatively well, this is an extensive electrical and mechanical overhaul of both MOPS and SEPS, Monterey Pump Station and Seaside Pump Stations. And it has required significantly more RFIs, design clarifications, submittal revisions, design modifications than originally anticipated. This is largely due to unknown site and facility conditions associated with poor as-built documentation from the facility's original construction back in 1983, and subsequent modifications and design changes over the years. In addition, I would add that there are inherent difficulties of a project like this owing primarily to keeping critical life safety facilities in full operation while changing out the key components, mechanical, electrical. In March 2025, the board approved the first ESDC amendment in the amount of $410,500. The ESDC portion, however, was $269,000. $269,076, and the other $141,000 portion had to do with design of a new component of the projects, that being the SEPS fire suppression pipeline. That was during the MOPS electrical phase of the project, and that ESDC amendment was largely to support that phase of the project. However, now, as of March 2026, electrical overhaul of the SEPS project, of the SEPS pump station, is in full swing, and so far has been considerably more complicated and challenging than MOPS. I would say the key reason for that is there's a huge component in the SEPS project that's not included in the MOPS project, and that's the largest bid item in the entire combined project. That would be the SEPS generator replacement of two large 1,200 kilowatt generators at the SEPS facility. This has been challenging in terms of layout, horizontal and vertical layout, anchorage, rerouting of exhaust piping, piping to the radiator system, and so on and so forth. So that generator replacement bid item by itself was $4.1 million. That accounts for 12% of the total combined MOPSEPS project. So with that, staff asks that the Recycle Water Committee recommend that the board approve a contract amendment to the CP 330 MOPS upgrades and CP 331 SEPS upgrades design contract with Carollo Engineers for a not to exceed amount of $229,882, bringing the total contract amount to $3,055,560. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Tom. Questions?
So you alluded to the fact that one of the technical difficulties of both these pump station upgrades, renewals, however you want to characterize it, is the fact that we have to keep pumping effluent past those locations when construction is happening inside, changing out pumps and so forth. That means somebody has equipment for doing a bypass. So do we now own two sets of equipment or to do bypasses with? Is that our equipment or is that simply a service provided by the contractor?
That's a great question. That was a service provided by the contractor. It was done in two different ways. For the MOPS pump station, it was sort of a Cadillac bypass system, an above ground temporary pump station by a specialty firm called Multiple Pump Solutions. And so they set up the means, including suction discharge piping, a hot tap downstream into the force main, and temporary pumps to provide for that pump around for about 6 to 8 weeks. That's how it was done at MOPS. And so companies like that own tons and tons of that equipment of different sizes, different specifications and such. So that was part of their fleet. At the seaside pump station, the contractor has put together sort of a temporary, the electrical guts of a pump station in essentially like a truck trailer. That is the property of the contractor. They put it together. They're providing it for the project. At the end of the project, I think we'll work closely with operations and upper management and the board to see if it's makes sense, if it's feasible, if the contractor's amenable and the pricing is right. It might be attractive to see about potentially making an offer for that unit. I'm sure Daryl and his team could make great use of it.
Well, that's sort of where I was going with this. We don't know what the future may bring, but there are a variety of threats in the world out there, if I can call them that, and from environmental to human, that could take one of these pump stations down. And that would be a very bad thing if we could not respond. Well, how much time would we actually have to, of course, it obviously depends on what people are putting down their drains, but roughly speaking, if one of those pump stations went down, would we have 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days?
It's really going to depend on the pump station that is affected. Some pump
Sure.
stations have more storage volume. So, if there's a power outage, they can hold more flow. They can back up into the lines feeding into the wet well. It's normally on the order of hours. Okay.
Okay.
Like a minimum of 2 hours hold time. So let's say the electrical system were to fail and they had to bring in a standby power generator. Typically, the storage volume provides sufficient time for the operations staff to deploy a portable standby generator in the event that the permanent generator were to fail. So that's the typical approach.
Okay.
So that's typical. What is our shortest duration? Like holding in a wet well, like during peak flows, let's say. Where would that be, you think? At Seaside? Okay.
Wow.
So typical to a couple hours, 45 minutes at Seaside during peak flows.
Okay. Okay.
And this is why I want to emphasize with pump stations like Seaside, this is why we have multiple pumps, in case a pump fails. It's why we have a redundant generator. A lot of pump stations have one fixed generator. This particular station has two, right? So it's like we have a backup to the backup.
Right,
So
right.
really the need for backup systems depends on the particular station. So,
Of course, a 20-foot tsunami would probably take all of those systems offline. Sorry, don't mean to raise nightmare scenarios, but we need to be prepared. Thank you. Great answer.
Questions? Do we
I'll
have
go ahead
any-
and move approval.
Second,
Move approval, second. Okay, we have any public? Nothing from the public. All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye, and the motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Move on to item E. Consider recommending approval of funding for second year of amendment number 1 to Energy Services Agreement with Energia Technologies. Is that Matt?
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Daryl Harris, Utilities and Maintenance Manager. In 2023, Monterey One Water entered an energy service agreement with Energia Technologies to design and install a food waste receiving facility and install more efficient mixers and anaerobic digesters at Monterey One Water's regional treatment plant with the energy service agreement. The food waste receiving facility was commissioned in 2025 and enables Monterey One Water to receive, tanker trucks of food waste slurry, co-digest it with sludge and produce more valuable biogas. A portion of the cost included a 4.2 million cal recycle grant, which commits Monterey One Water to receive at least 31,200 tons of food waste per year. In October of 2024, the board approved an amendment to the energy service agreement with Energia for food waste procurement, management, and operation services in a not to exceed amount of $760,140 per year. The amendment was for a term of 3 years and includes the following: a team of professionals to procure and manage food waste for an amount not to exceed $623,340 per year, attendance to operate the food waste receiving station for an amount to not to exceed $136,800 per year, and establish appropriate tipping fees for disposal of food waste, collect tipping fees, and convey all tipping fees revenue to Monterey One Water. The first year of the amendment began in May of 2025, and our first delivery was in January of 2026. There have been challenges securing food waste deliveries, and M1W or Monterey One Water continues to collaborate with Energia to ensure deliveries. All expenses under the amendment are included in the fiscal year 26-27 budget in Department 37. Staff requests that the Recycled Water Committee recommend that the Board of Directors approve the funding for the second year of the amendment to the Energy Service Agreement with Energia Technologies for food waste procurement, management, and operation services and the not to exceed amount of $760,140. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Daryl? Questions with Tom? Go ahead.
So I realize we've only had about 8 months, 7 months of experience with this. And the system is presumably producing biogas, and we're monitoring how much it is. And there's some foregone costs if we use that biogas to generate electricity for our other processes, I assume. So there's some dollar value you can put on that. Are the tipping fees coming to us, or are they going against Energia's work? Who keeps the tipping fees?
Did you get it? So the way that agreement is set up is that the tipping fees are intended to offset the cost of Energia's services. So that
They come
$760,000,
to us, to per his question.
it comes to us in the form of a credit
Yeah.
on the services that Energia provides us.
Okay, so our cost isn't going to actually be seven
Slightly less than that due to the tipping fee
due to
revenue.
the tipping fees. Okay. And so far, how do you think we're doing in this overall process? Reduced electricity costs have a dollar value, the tipping fees have a dollar value, but obviously we're paying Energia. Are we making money? Are we losing money?
We're not making money yet.
We have more money going out than we have coming in.
Going
And the
in.
reason being, as we start bringing this thing up to speed, there's a number of components. One is Energia needs to hopefully get more consistent with the food waste we're receiving. It's difficult. Their main network is in Southern California. Obviously, Regen takes a lot of the food waste in our respective area. So we're working to try to help Energia and help ourselves. Secondly, we were referencing earlier about the bid that Matt and engineering has out, which is sort of that next step on the renewable energy project, which is when hopefully all of this starts saving money versus having an outflow of cash. So it is sort of a stepwise fashion that we're investing in.
Well, and like I said, you're 8 months into it, so you can hardly give me the first year's numbers yet, but.
No. But when we do give you that first year's number, there will be an outflow of cash. We're not breaking even yet.
Okay.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion second, any public? No public, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimous. Move on to item F. Consider recommending approval of fiscal year 26-27 budget amendment in the amount of 300,000 for Department 58, Pure Water Monterey. Go ahead, Tom.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Recently, deep injection wells, or DIWs 1, 2, and 3 experienced mechanical issues in relatively quick succession, requiring the wells to be taken out of service for inspection, diagnosis, and repair. DIW 1's outage was associated with a failed foot valve. However, pulling the pump shaft assembly revealed the need for pump bowl replacement due to excessive wear and corrosion. The quote in hand for parts and repair is $81,150. Downhole DIW2 conditions are still being explored, but the initial outage was due to a failure of the 3R valves. That's the flow control valve. The 3R valve's 600-foot high-pressure hydraulic line, causing hydraulic fluid to leak out, thereby disabling operations' ability to control flow, essentially rendering the deep injection well offline. So some diagnostics remain to be done, but currently the repair estimate on that one is about $50,000. The initial DIW3 outage was also due to a failure of the 3R valve's hydraulic system. In addition, downhole recon and diagnostics reveal that the water lubrication retainers, what we call the spider retainers, which keep the pump shaft stable and reduce vibration, they also need replacement, as well as the downhole pump bowl shaft. These items are on order, and repair quote for DIW3, which is the largest producer injector of the three, the repair quote on that is $75,250. Estimated repair costs with the quotes in hand for DIW1, DIW3, and the estimate to the combined estimated repair cost results in $206,400. However, the diagnosis of DIW2 is still underway, so final costs remain pending. Given the uncertainty surrounding the final costs, staff recommends increasing the Department 58 fiscal year 26-27 budget by $300,000. Requested appropriation will provide sufficient budget to complete the currently identified repairs while also providing approximately $94,000 in contingency for any additional issues. Again, these came in relatively quick succession, so hopefully there's no additional issues, but should anything else occur, that $94,000 will provide contingency to deal with that. So with that, staff asks that the Recycle Water Committee recommend that the board approve a fiscal year 26-27 budget amendment in the amount of $300,000 for Fund 58, Pure Water Monterey, funded from available fund reserves. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Tom.
Three questions. When do we estimate, it sounds like 2 is still in pending review, but when do we estimate these will be back online? What is the impact to the program? Yeah, maybe.
So the DIW1 is sort of capped at 200 GPM in terms of ejection. That has to do with our permit and travel time and so on and so forth. DIW2 is capped at 400 GPM. So we're sort of fortunate that this happened initially to these 2 relatively low injectors, let's say. When DIW3 went down on July 3rd, that that was cause for more concern that injects at about 1,000 or 1,100 GPM. So the focus was more on the primary focus was on getting DIW3 back. Like I said, the parts are on order. Talking with Majora, the well drilling company, we expect to have the parts in hand by next week. So there's a good chance that they might be out there starting to repair and reinstall DIW3 by the end of next week, but I believe it'll probably be the following week. So we'll be in pretty good shape. As it stands right now, we're fortunate that we are in these months where the water demand is a little bit lower. So the 1,500 GPM that we're getting from DIW5 and the 1,500 GPM that we're getting from DIW6, as well as the, I think, 800 GPM from the still online old DIW4, has us taken care of. So we're not below our injection targets, but by October, when SVRP goes down, October, November, the demand is going to start going up. So we'll have DIW3 back online in time, and I think D1 and 2 for that additional combined 600 GPM will follow soon.
Okay, and then it sounds like the issues are maybe somewhat consistent. And so are we looking at maybe how to avoid this issue presenting itself again?
Yeah, so the issue of the hydraulic line, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's frustrating because it's very avoidable. However, it's a relatively easy fix. The problem is anything happens to these wells downhole, you're in for 30 grand just to pull the pump and the shaft assembly out and get eyes on it and do the recon. So that's before the repair. So that is unfortunate, but we've gone back to 3R and talking to Majora, and with the help of Brad from maintenance, we're trying to figure out a better method of attaching that hydraulic hose to the side of the 12-inch inner column. That's sort of where it lives, so it doesn't rattle around like crazy during injection, and especially backflush. So Brad and I believe, and I think anybody who puts eyes on some of these pictures can say that with the method that this hydraulic line is attached to the center column, it seems a bit aggressive in terms of the materials used and the potential for shearing of that hydraulic line. So we're working to put kind of a nice plastic bushing that sort of protects it, and to add some additional restraints to hopefully alleviate that problem.
All right, thank you.
So you mentioned there was a problem with corrosion of some components. That concerns me a bit, given the relatively young age of these wells. Do we know if that corrosion is an issue with the nature of the water we're putting down that hole? Or did some design engineer just pick the wrong material for these corroded parts?
So we believe it's largely due to the chlorine concentration of the water, the chloraminization that takes place. So I think water chemistry isn't really on the table for adjustment. We can work with operations and see if maybe that 4 ppm residual can maybe come down to 3 or the high 2s. But the issue is, talking with operations, I believe that chlorine residual does provide additional LRV credit. It's not the one that you guys rely on primarily, but it does provide a bit of a buffer. And also, with the portion of the water that Marina Coast uses from the Black Horse Reservoir, sometimes their distribution, it's not always like clockwork. It could vary quite a bit. So Marina Coast requests that we hold a certain residual for their tertiary uses of that water. So we're a bit stuck in terms of having to apply chlorine maybe a few parts higher than we normally would. And so chlorine being kind of an aggressive component in this business, that's kind of the cost of doing business. But we are in this DIW3 pump bowl shaft replacement. We did request kind of a more exotic, more expensive version of stainless steel for that component. So we are trying to make smarter choices. And then at the end of the year, we'll talk with upper management and the board. If any of this $94,000 sort of contingency for well issues remains, we might want to do a small technical memo with a corrosion firm, maybe partner with KJ to take part in that, having been the design engineer of record, and put together maybe just a little handbook, something that says, hey, your water's pretty aggressive. We got through this issue in the beginning of, we're in the process of getting through this issue in the beginning of fiscal 26, 27. But maybe by next May, June, we're putting together a little handbook to say, when you eventually have to replace the full-blown pump to the tune of, $250,000, here's what we recommend you do. Here are the additional costs, the additional features, the additional corrosion protection that M1W might consider for the eventual pump replacement.
So these corroded parts were a form of stainless steel already.
Correct.
And even then, of course, we also know that Pure Water Monterey at the plant produces water so close to distilled water that we already have to buffer it because, as you know from your chemistry class, water is the universal solvent and it likes to dissolve almost anything if it's in pure form. So I'm sure that's
I think a slight request, the existing pump bowls, aren't they epoxy coated cast iron?
Yes.
And so with this switch, we're talking about upgrading
to stainless steel.
stainless.
Okay, good.
Okay, so that's
That might
probably part of the issue. is-
deal with the
By moving to better materials, it should be more durable.
thank you.
And the idea behind this is that if we're gonna go to the expense of pulling these wells,
Right.
if we're not just going to focus on what is causing the particular failure in that particular well, we want to take advantage of the opportunity while the well is out of the ground to put
Look at
parts
everything.
back in
Yep.
to minimize the need for frequent pulling of the pump. That's kind of the idea behind this contingency we're requesting.
We appreciate that, and because if it's 98,000 to pull a pump today, next year it'll be 105,000, and after that it'll be 150. So, yeah, good. Thank you.
Go ahead and move approval.
Second.
Second, any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Item G, consider recommending award of contracts to Brentag. Ms. Jose.
Yes. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Jose Guzman. I'm the operations manager for Monterey One Water. The advanced water purification facility uses chemicals within the treatment and post-treatment operations. Functions of the chemicals vary, but include managing chloramine residuals, stabilizing purified water, controlling pH, and preventing scaling. In September of 2025, the board approved 5 chemical contracts for AWPF to supply and deliver chemicals required for the treatment of 7.6 million gallons per day product water. The 5 chemical contracts were sulfuric acid, calcium chloride, sodium bisulfite, sodium hypochlorite, and sodium hydroxide, and included a 1-year term with options up to 3 1-year extensions. Unfortunately, offers to extend were rejected by the suppliers due to a significant increase in cost, and the contracts are set to expire in September of 2026. Staff developed bid documents with the notice inviting bids published in July of 2026. Companies were allowed to bid on 1 or more of the 5 chemicals for a contract term of 1 year with the option of 3 1-year extensions. The notice required bidders to submit via the online bid management system Planet Bids. On August 7, 2026, M1W received 5 online bids through Planet Bids from the following suppliers: Brentag Pacific Inc., Hills Brothers Chemical Company, North Star Chemical, DBA of Pacific Star, Penco Inc., Univar Solutions USA Inc. Staff reviewed the 5 submittals and identified the lowest qualified bid for each of the 5 chemicals. Brentag Pacific was the lowest bidder for sodium hydroxide, Penco for sulfuric acid, Hill Brothers for calcium chloride, and Univar for both sodium hypochlorite and sodium bisulfite. Staff requests that the Recycle Water Committee recommend that the board award the following contracts of chemical supply and delivery for the advanced water purification facility: Brentag Pacific Inc. for sodium hydroxide in a not to exceed amount of $218,674.80. Penco for sulfuric acid in a not to exceed amount of $1,007,503.50. Hill Brothers Chemical Company for calcium chloride in a not to exceed amount of $344,356 $1,000.00. Univar Solutions USA Inc. for sodium hypochlorite and sodium bisulfite in a combined not to exceed amount of $801,687.43 for a total not to exceed amount of $2,372,221.73. I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you,
And
Jose.
please note, since the last contract, this 50% increase in all this stuff, I mean, pretty much in total,
Yes,
from the last one to this
Right.
one, it's increased 50% just on these chemicals. It's pretty dramatic.
yeah.
Tom, go ahead.
So some of these chemicals, particularly sulfuric acid, is used in a variety of industrial processes to, in some cases, manufacture some fairly nefarious substances, so to speak. But that often depends on purity. So are we buying sulfuric acid of those sorts of concentrations?
Yeah, we're north of 90%.
Oh, okay. I hope we have good security, anti-theft security.
That's not something I'd want to mess with.
Well, yeah, the kind of people who would are a little crazy. I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public? No public? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimous. Moving on to item H. Consider approval of First Amendment to Brentag again for hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah, good afternoon, members of the committee. Jose Guzman, Operations Manager, and I'll be presenting this item as well. Monterey One Water operates the Advanced Water Purification Facility, which requires the use of hydrogen peroxide as part of the ultraviolet advanced oxidation process, disinfection process. The UVAOP process provides 6 logs of the required 12-log inactivation of viruses and other pathogens. Water quality and regulatory requirements cannot be met without the addition of hydrogen peroxide. On August 25th, 2025, the board approved the award of a chemical contract to Brentag Pacific Inc. for a not to exceed amount of $83,273.57 for the supply and delivery of hydrogen peroxide. The term of the agreement was for 1 year with the option in its sole discretion to extend the term of the agreement for 3 additional 1-year extensions. The price established in the original contract states that if contract is extended, it shall be increased based on the producer's price index by commodity for chemicals and allied products, but not to exceed 10%. Staff wish to exercise the option to extend the contract for an additional 1-year term. The first extension or first amendment of the contract was agreed upon and will end on September 30th, 2027, with a 7.7% increase in cost, equating to roughly $6,300. And that's per year. The cost of hydrogen peroxide has been included in the fiscal year 26-27 AWPF budget for Department 58. Staff requests that the Recycled Water Committee recommend that the board approve a first amendment to Brentag Pacific Inc. for the hydrogen peroxide for the Advanced Water Purification Facility for the not to exceed amount of $89,672.40. I am available to take any questions you may have.
All right, thank you.
I'll move approval.
Good.
Second.
Got a second? We got any public comment? Don't see any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimous. Move on to item I. Consider recommending approval of the contract amendment with Larry Walker and Associates.
All right. Good afternoon, committee members. I'm Matt Thompson, your Director of Engineering. Before Bob Holden presents the next 2 business items, I have a brief update for you on the status of our efforts with California American Water Company to obtain the NPDES permit required for CalAm to discharge salty brine from their proposed seawater desalination facility into Monterey One Water's ocean outfall. We are operating under the October 2023 outfall negotiation agreement in which Monterey One Water agreed to do the environmental permitting and engineering work needed to accommodate the brine discharge. In 2025, the Board of Directors approved of applying to the Central Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board for modifications to our National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, which is really the most important permit when it comes to operations of our treatment plants and the ocean outfall. Since submitting the application, Monterey One Water staff, including Bob Holden, myself, several of Tammy's environmental compliance staff, our consultant Larry Walker and Associates, and special legal counsel Sean Haggerty from Best and Krieger have been meeting on a regular basis with CalAm and Water Board staff to work through the important technical and legal details of the new NPDES permit. This has been an intensive and time-consuming effort, which is why Bob has an item today recommending extension of a professional services agreement with Larry Walker and Associates for continued assistance with the permitting process. It is important to emphasize that CalAm is obligated to pay for all of these costs per the October 2023 agreement. I do have a couple of updates for you. First, we have recently added Rochelle Thompson to our team, and she is with us here today. There's Rochelle. Rochelle is with Kennedy Jenks Consultants, which now has an office here in Monterey. Rochelle is a professional engineer with a regulatory background. She's very well suited for this particular work and has already made good contributions to the team. Rochelle will be working very closely with Bob Holden and the team to keep this effort moving. This will enable me to turn more of my attention to delivery of our capital improvement program. So going forward, when it comes to the outfall, I anticipate you'll be hearing more from Rochelle and a little less from me. So second update, early this month, the Central Coast Water Board released the draft NPDES permit for public comments. Anybody who has an interest in the permit may submit comments. The deadline for submittal is August 31st. So it's fairly fast, like a 30-day public comment period. The team I mentioned is very active in reviewing the draft permit and preparing comment letters. CalAm staff is also preparing comments. The draft permit, it's an exceedingly large document, about 340 pages. So I won't detail that for you now, but there are two aspects of the permit that I want to highlight for you today. First is that due to the extensive new requirements associated with just the desalination facility, the Water Board has decided to jointly issue the permit to both Monterey One Water and CalAm, okay? This will enable the Water Board to directly regulate CalAm for the requirements that are specific to the desalination facility. There will still be a need for a lot of coordination between Monterey One Water and CalAm staff in the future to fulfill all of the permit requirements. We anticipate these responsibilities will be spelled out in the lease agreement that we negotiate with CalAm for their use of the outfall after the NPDES permit is settled. So we're still working towards that, okay? Second, there is an aspect of the draft permit that will have a major impact on the future of our regional treatment plant. Paul mentioned it briefly at the last board meeting. For many decades now, Monterey One Water has been able to discharge treated but undisinfected wastewater to the ocean outfall. Because we have conducted offshore monitoring to demonstrate the discharge adequately protects water contact recreation and shellfish harvesting in the nearshore environment. Due to a 2025 U.S. Supreme Court decision resulting from a case coming out of San Francisco, the Water Board has decided to require compliance with bacteria limits at the so-called end of pipe, rather than out in the ocean. This is a major change because it will effectively require Monterey One Water to build a disinfection process and begin disinfecting its flow of secondary treated wastewater into the ocean outfall. It is really important that we register our comments prior to August 31st. So we have prepared a comment letter in which we will be asking the water board to give Monterey One Water a reasonable amount of time to come into compliance with this new requirement. In fact, Paul and I will be meeting with the executive officer of the Central Coast Water Board in San Luis Obispo next week to discuss this very topic and to present our request. This is a pretty fast moving issue, and I anticipate that we'll have more information to share with you in the weeks ahead. As for the permitting process, the Central Coast Water Board has scheduled the public hearing for adoption of the NPDES permit on either December 10th or 11th in San Luis Obispo. We are going to remain actively involved in that process, and we'll keep you posted on important developments. So at this point, unless you have questions for me, I'd now like to ask Bob to present his items. So.
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, Chair and members of the committee. Bob Holden, Principal Engineer. So as you've heard, this NPDES permit process has lasted a lot longer than we anticipated. It's a lot more complicated than we ever conceived. And so we need a contract amendment to cover the extra costs that will be utilized. All expenditures, as Matt mentioned, are paid for by a deposit from California American Water. It's from the consultants and all staff time. Proposed scope of work and the fees seem reasonable and appropriate. So the staff requests that the Recycle Water Committee recommend that the board approve a contract amendment with Larry Walker Associates for NPDES services for the Monterey Peninsula Water Supply Project for not to exceed amount of $290,149.00 for a total not to exceed amount of $1,399,384.78. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we know where Palam's getting the money to pay for this?
One of their
yes. You're very generous. Maybe Tyler will contribute too. Thank you.
So the disinfecting that we got to do, is that on our ticket? It's going to prorate other users of the outfall.
We need to negotiate that with Cal-Am and everyone else, and just the impacts of what we're finding out. Matt and team are hopefully going to propose a study on what's the most effective way to do it within the time frame the regional board is going to allow, as well as what's the long-term effects. He's come to you with the master plan, which now could substantially change based on the conditions within this permit. So I think that to answer your question, Ron, it's in the works, but certainly we would not be in this position right now had we not asked for a change in our permit, at least for a few more years.
What's that going to do for us? Are we permitted for the expansion now?
Yes. Yes. This is truly just in reference to the secondary effluent that we discharge through the outfall.
Right.
But it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a game changer.
I guess the farmers got their tailwater issue too is going to be on that same agenda, as far as what I was told by Norm.
Oh, in December? Oh.
So there's going to be a lot of farmers. A lot of farmers there.
Yeah, 4.0.
What are the implications if we don't approve recommendations to the board?
This particular item, we don't continue working on the Cal-Am desal project. Well, if the board doesn't approve it, we don't continue working on the Cal-Am desal project. As Bob laid out, it's just taken longer. There's more information, there's some changes. I think we've spent quite a bit, we meaning Cal-Am and their customers have spent quite a bit on this, and this is just an additional scope item.
So if we recommend denial, that the denial recommendation goes to the board.
Correct.
I do want to emphasize, though, that we have submitted this application to the water board and this NPDS permit process is moving. So
Right,
it will keep moving whether we have the additional support from Larry Walker and Associates or not, unless we are specifically directed by you all to request a change and how the water board's approving this.
But will continue. Larry Walker's work in relation to Cal-Am's portion of the MPDS would stop. We would then have a contract with Larry Walker to continue assisting us. So I think we would bifurcate that work.
Understand.
I'll recommend that this item go to the board. I don't think we have to necessarily approve or deny. Just let the board make a decision. So I think we should have it on as an action item and have that discussion at the board level. So that's my recommendation. That's my motion. And yeah.
I'm okay with that motion. Second.
Okay, got a motion in a second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried unanimous. Item J.
Okay, so
On this.
somewhat more of the same. So the design process associated with accepting brine has been impacted by this NPDS permit and by other permits, and also by we ran into or found AT&T conduit that carries telephone and fiber optic lines to our treatment plant. The telephone are mostly for alarms, and the fiber optic is for our internet connection to the world. So, but it goes right through the two structures, and so it has to be moved. So there's that part. There have been also right-of-way and easement issues that have resulted in several changes. So we need this contract amendment is to cover extra costs due to some of these different changes. As with the previous item, all costs are covered by Cal-Am and their deposit with us. Staff requests that the Recycle Water Committee recommend that the board approve a contract amendment with Brown & Caldwell for outfall improvement projects for the Monterey Peninsula Water Supply Project in a not to exceed amount of $625,000 for a total not to exceed amount of $3,445,773. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Questions?
Would these changes be needed if we weren't moving forward with Cal-Am?
If we don't move forward, well, let's see.
Say no.
Okay. Say,
I mean, Bob has a much greater understanding of this than I will ever have, but on the most simplistic way, no, we would not engage with BNC and do all this work if
we
didn't have a desal.
if you stop us, then right.
Okay.
Stop
The
it.
one thing we would do is probably the evaluation of the junction structure at some future date.
Okay, I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna recommend that this be an action item, the board meeting, not take a approval or denial at this time. So that's my motion.
And a question. Where would we be if Calium's proposed desal plant, but imagine we're in an alternate universe. And we get to this point, but Calium decides it doesn't want a 6.4 MGD, doesn't want a 4.8 MGD, but it wants a 1000 MGD desal project. What does that do to any or all of this?
So a 1000 MGD, so a significantly larger
No,
one?
I'm sorry,
A 1 MGD.
1 MGD. Yeah, sorry, I got my
I mean,
comma in the wrong place.
Bob will certainly be able to respond to this, but every time they've changed, it's sort of parts of this is going back to the drawing board because of how the brine is going to be pulsed and sent to us.
Right,
Right.
right. So that's what I'm
The
getting at.
surprising part is that the smaller the desal plant, the more difficult it is to get permitted.
And why is that?
Because brine is so different than wastewater that, well, first of all, you have to redesign the diffusers instead of horizontal diffusers we have now. We would have them at 60-degree angle. You need to get enough flow to have that plume rise up, do its mixing before it comes back down again. If you have lower flows, you may not have enough pressure, enough flow to get that mixing. It'll just more dribble out down to the seafloor.
However, the reason why the duckbills under the current design have to push brine out of this with some velocity is because that brine is heavier than seawater and will fall fairly rapidly. And there's some fall time involved with the mixing. But if they're only putting 1 MGD in with our treated wastewater, that's less briny. So part of my question is, do we even need to change the duck bills, or will just horizontal get you the mixing needed with that more dilute fluid?
So in the wintertime, you're right, that's fine. For the 6 months of irrigation where we don't have effluent, that's the concern. So what Bob's describing is that we need the velocity for the distribution, out into the water column, and you're not going to have that all summer. So what they've been working on then is, hey, Cal-Am, you need to hold up a day's worth, 2 days, 5 days worth of brine, depending on the size of the plant, and then give it to us so we have the velocity to get that dispersion. Because it's going to be on its own. It's not going to be with any wastewater. It'll be with some RO concentrate. But
if they're doing 1 MGD, they're accumulating brine at a much slower pace. So it's quite possible the same reservoir brine.
Right. So,
They're
but,
becoming-
so
Can I ask a favor real quick?
Sure.
Could we
Sorry.
bring this discussion? I have to run and
yep.
I leave, we're gonna lose.
I'll second the motion.
Perfect. Thank you. And we can pick
sit
it up
around
at the
and
board
talk
meeting.
afterwards.
I think it's a good conversation for the board, so I want to make sure that we give ourselves time there as well.
I seconded.
We got a second? Any public discussion? Nobody showed up. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks,
So
Bob.
you still want the answer, or?
Let's do it afterwards. Let them close us up. Can you stick around for a bit?
Well, give it to me afterwards and then I'll decide. Well, never mind.
Just for process, do we have to adjourn since we're losing? Because I have to run right now.
Wasn't that our last?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can still do staff reports and board member
Okay,
reports
okay,
because
perfect.
there's no action necessary.
Thank you. Sorry.
So staff reports.
None by me.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks, Tyler.
I think we're all good.
All good?
Yeah.
All right. Committee member reports.
Thank you for your patience with all my questions today. Appreciate your hard work too. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll adjourn this meeting. Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend.